Welcome to Stevie G's Energy Corner. We got Alan Fetterman from the VA DC in the house. Hey, Alan, you and I have been together for what, close to 20 years now, since the VA first started their energy action plan back in 2005, I believe, 2006, somewhere in there.
Well, actually, Stevie, I don't want to date myself for you, but you have a bit more experience than I do. I've been with the VA for 14 years now, and I met you probably 13 years ago. So it's approaching 20 years. I wish I could say I could retire tomorrow.
Okay. All right. So, but yeah, that's when
at least a decade and a half. We're going on a decade and a half of knowing each other, working together. Just Stevie, you're amazing. You've been supporting the VA, the veterans, for as long as I've been working for the VA, and you've really shaped the core of the VHA energy program, working with VA Central Office. Not only that, I've seen you multiple years supporting the Department of Energy Exchange Show. You've been at the Association of Energy Engineers, so you're out supporting the community, Stevie, and everybody needs to know that.
Hey, well, I appreciate that, Alan. So, hey, I know that I don't want to say that you've been everywhere in the VA, but you've been around quite a few different sites, seen different things, because that phrase is, if you've seen one VA, you've seen one VA, right? Because they're all independently different. So I know you were out there in Sacramento doing a bunch of work at Sacramento and Palo Alto first, cutting your teeth kind of. I think that's where you started.
Yeah, correct. You see one VA, it's just that, right? Today, we have 170 designated VA medical centers and 1,350 sites of care, which has gone up since I started. I started back in San Francisco VA, 2010. I went to the Vision 21, which is 7 healthcare systems that include San Francisco, Palo Alto, Fresno, Reno, Las Vegas, Pacific Islands Healthcare Network. Why am I only on 6?
Hey, that's and
Northern California, the one that you started with, Northern California, of course. That's why.
Yeah, and I know you've been doing energy projects, upgrading the stuff for the vets, taking care of what the VA's mission is, taking care of our veterans. We can upgrade our hospitals, whatever, but make sure that we don't disrupt the veterans and the mission of taking care of the veterans. So I know you've seen a lot of different projects, from PV to, microgrids to all kinds of stuff, So, hey, you kind of learned on the spot, so to speak.
Sure. Well, it's all about community and building partnerships and building coalitions is what we say here, right? Nobody can come in and pretend that they know everything. Just a little of what I've done that's been recognized on a national level is a $100 million utility energy savings contract that covered 3 of our 7 healthcare systems within our healthcare network, and then 2 energy savings performance contracts in the other healthcare systems. So combined, it's $100 million of energy retrofits that have benefited our aged and deficient infrastructure.
Well, we know that because we know that, every hospital ends up having to upgrade with the new technology and everything, and the VA is not immune to that. We know that some of those hospitals have been around since the 30s and needed to be upgraded, better air quality, that all those new standards, keeping it up. And then, of course, when you do work in the hospital, you kind of make sure that you know how to work around, people that have PTSD, right? Because we know that there's sections in the hospital that are set aside for those vets too.
Of course, and that's just one aspect of it, Stevie. Aside from what we call our mental health lockdown wards, where we have inpatients that suffer from severe PTSD and other mental health syndromes. You obviously have to be quite attentive when you work in those areas. But we also have a lot of immune compromised patients within our medical centers too, where extra precaution needs to be taken when it comes to risk assessments and pre-construction activities. You won't find that typically in other healthcare systems to the extent that we take in terms of protecting our patients when we do these construction, internal, external, energy retrofits, etc. And I can go more into that later. But the VA is definitely leading on the edge of that for sure.
Oh, I know. That's what I remember talking, to CJ and Phyllis, when they do the selection of which companies are going to come in and retrofit the hospitals. First thing they kind of look for is what background they've had, not only doing hospitals, but dealing with, the veterans, right? Because it is a special niche that you got to be able to work with and around. So I know the
Sure.
VA is kind of like special.
Well, in that regard, a lot of construction contractors they sometimes come with and without healthcare experience. And what I'll say to that regard is that, and to all the construction companies that are interested in doing business with the VA, I always recommend that you first take a look at the VA online specifications for our construction, which is VA TIL. If everybody wants to Google search that, that's VATIL, that's Technical Information Library, which has all of our construction procedures and also our specifications online, because it is challenging when contractors unfamiliar with having to put up barriers to prevent dust and contamination from getting into other areas, having to use negative pressure machines, et cetera, et cetera. And they also have to factor that time that it takes to do these things into their estimates, which is something that I think is a specialized field in and of itself.
Oh, absolutely. Because, hey, and you got to get educated. Of course, all the education you can get, you're still going to go in there and learn new stuff and have to work around certain aspects that are going to happen, different patients, different things that the VA's got going on that day. Because you know how it is. You walk in that morning at 8 o'clock in the morning thinking this is what I'm going to do today. And by 8:30, your whole day's been changed up and shaken up, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, speaking as an acting chief engineer at the Washington, D.C. Medical Center, also I was acting chief at the Atlanta VA Medical Center. Our mission is continuity of patient care, first and foremost. So the first thing we do is make sure that when it comes to critical care, especially in our surgical suites, they're at their top performance so that our doctors who we support are able to operate in the most stringent conditions possible. And not only that, it goes beyond just the operating suites into what we call our SPS, or sterile processing services, which is universal across all medical centers, not just the VA, but that's where typically the reusable medical equipment that the surgeons and doctors use on patients is processed and sterilized so that we can continue to do surgeries. And the reason why I'm going into some details on this, Stevie, is because, what we're seeing across the VA is, and as you know, the constant evolution of our specifications and the way we operate our indoor air quality and environmental conditions. And we're always changing and improving our processes. So, for example, ST 108 just came out, which is a standard for water quality. And that's very important when it comes to sterile processing service. Back to you, Stevie.
Oh, I know. So that's what I'm getting at is that, as an engineer, right, for the facilities, first year in Atlanta, now you're in DC, and I know that DC's got more eyes on it because, it is right where the headquarters is. And everybody's, in there watching. So you got to make sure of everything. So what are you looking at, kind of like big picture for 2025 of upgrading, that facility and some of the other ones that you've been around? Because I know you're
Yeah.
on an advisory board, so I'm sure you got your thumb or finger, whatever you want to say, on the pulse of what, is being done or looked at in the different hospitals around, at least the ones that you've been in, because I know you still care about the ones that you've been at, right? Or
Yeah,
overseen.
well, definitely. Personally for me, a veteran's a veteran, regardless of where the veteran's located, right? And there were a lot of takeaways that I had from being a regional engineer, one of 18 regional engineers, and sharing my experience with other regional engineers across the country. One thing I'll say is that we look to have more equity in healthcare across the country, which means that we need a VA that is, say, in the Pacific Islands, should be at the same standards as a VA in Washington, D.C., should be the same standards as a VA in Atlanta. To that point, Stevie, of the 170 medical centers, the average age is about 62 or 63 years old. So that's where our fight as healthcare engineering warriors starts, is that we have some very old infrastructure throughout the VA. And I presented a slide that would be great to pull up now.
Yeah, go ahead. And
if you could pop that, or if you need me to pop it.
There you go.
So one of the things that came out of that ASHI conference this year, and this isn't top secret information here, is our 7 strategic priorities for major capital investment. So you can see the list right now, and these are some of the facilities that are being prioritized to do a study to determine, what does the next 10 years look like? Are we going to recapitalize the entire medical center? Are we going to replace it? Are we going to do a hybrid model where we're looking at some on the campus and some in the community, or going out to partners and elsewhere? As you can see, some of my unique experience comes from the fact that I've been an acting chief for over a year at number 5, which is the Atlanta VA, and then now at number 4, which is the Washington, D.C. VA. So I can honestly say that I've been in some of the facilities that may need to be upgraded the most in terms of the infrastructure. And what I'll say about that is it makes it more challenging in terms of our day-to-day facility management service operations. And so we can talk about that a little bit if you'd like as well.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's just dive in. We got time. Let's just dive in right now while you got the slide up.
All right. Well, with that being said, with our more aged infrastructure, it looks like we're fighting a constant battle day to day of having enough staff to not only do what we call preventive maintenance work orders, essentially what we're required to do to keep our critical systems from failing. For example, air handlers. Preventive maintenance would be change filters, change the belts on air handlers. These are things that have to be done. Whether or not the facility is 60 years old or, say, brand new, a year old, there's always going to be preventative maintenance that needs to be done in a facility to keep it 100% operational. Now, as the facility gets older, as everybody may understand, there's going to be what we call work order repairs. And those are when the infrastructure starts to fail. We have pipes that are 60 years old in some facilities, and they come to a point where they start rupturing. Those rupturing pipes, if they're not replaced, can cause flooding. And we've seen that in both the Atlanta and D.C. facilities. In fact, this year in Washington, D.C., we did have a 6-year-old pipe on the second floor that ruptured. It was a 2-inch pipe, and 2 inches of water for over an hour can cause extensive amounts of damage. So these are the things that we're seeing in our aged facilities, and it's quite costly and hard to catch up to be able to get ahead of it rather than behind it. Back to you, Steve.
Yeah, and I know that there's companies like Aquest that's out there that does the cleaning of the coils, the fins, cooling tower, and everything, and the 3 methods of high pressure, temperature, and chemical, right? The clean stuff. So I know that, especially in the hospitals, because I know they're doing a lot of work with the regular medical hospitals and some VAs that, when you get into that O&M, there's a lot. And, you guys, unfortunately don't have like a large O&M budget, right? I mean, the VA doesn't have a budget that they can say, hey, Alan, here's a couple million in O&M, go fix, what you think needs to be done at the site. So you're always having to figure out which way you're going to be able to contract or get incentives from either the utilities or grants that are out there. So I know that with that advisory board that you're on and everything, I know you guys are looking into filling out the grant paperwork, figuring out how you can work with utilities. And let's face it, every utility is different, right? You can't go to one utility and say they're all going to operate the same, right? I mean, you got Southern Company down there that oversaw the Atlanta VA. You got, Pacific Gas and Electric up there in San Fran that oversaw that one. And we know that their whole, well, first off, the state laws are different. We know
Yeah.
that.
Well,
And
I
then,
was going to start with that first. Is wait, and as you say, one VA is one VA for sure. That should be the case, but let's not forget across the VA, we're talking about 18 VISNs now and 50 states. And as you said, every state has different laws when it comes to, and not only different laws, but what really affects these energy performance contracts is rates of electricity, right? So,
yeah,
for example, where do we have the highest rates of electricity? In Hawaii, Alaska, California, the electricity cost is a lot higher than, say, in other states on the East Coast. So what that means, essentially, if you want to keep it in the most simple form, right, in terms of energy performance contracting, whether it's a UESC or ESPC, the concept is pretty universal. We're using funds based upon what we can do today, what we don't have, so we take a loan. And the loan is based upon what the paybacks are. Those paybacks tie directly into the cost of energy. If the cost of energy is higher, the payback is going to be much quicker. So when you talk about some of the needed, what we call energy conservation measures, and I'm sorry if I'm jumping right into the 2000.
no, that's all right. You jump wherever you need to go, buddy. We're good.
But this is something you brought up, which is what we can do versus what's cost effective to do. And that always becomes a little bit of a battle for the energy managers at the facilities. And when we're talking with our central office counterparts, when we're talking with our utility counterparts who often have to work, they're the intermediaries with the loan, with the bank and the financial institutions that provide these loans so that we can do the upfront construction, upfront cost of replacing of equipment that's been, toward its end of the life cycle. We really need those partners to fight for the causes, because sometimes there's a desperate need for something, but it may not pan out financially to be within the window of what we're authorized to do, which I believe is up to 25 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. You know it. And then, on top of it, you're getting different presidential memorandums, the different administrations, it doesn't matter. A lot of people are still quizzing over what happened in November, right? But, it happens every 4 years or every 2 years when Congress changes, you get new heads. You've been around, you know how it is on a military base. That base commander's there for 2 years, right? And then he moves on. So you got a 2-year window to try to get stuff done. Same thing with you guys, with the secretary of the VA or his staff. Things will change, things will pop up all of a sudden. Now we're going to go all electric, and the VA's had it to where the only boilers you could put in were Cleveland boilers, right? They're natural gas, they ain't electric boilers. So now you got this switch. So they keep you engineers your head on a swivel kind of deal. Like, okay, what are we doing today? Kind of like when I said you came in at 8 o'clock this morning, and by 8:30 your whole day's gone to hell because things have changed and which meetings you got to go to and what's coming out of those meetings.
Yeah, absolutely, Stevie. And as a career civil servant here, we're following what the administration puts in front of us, right? And we're going to execute that to the best of our ability. So I think a lot of us are, after a while, keen to understanding that things may switch and they may go one direction and they may go the other direction. Our mission here is to put the politics aside and do what's right for the veterans. And that's always what I try and coach other energy managers to do is not necessarily look at the politics, but why are we here today? Why we're here today is to fight for the veterans. And
Right.
whichever way the administration allows us to go forward is what we need to do in the most expedient way possible, because people really do depend on us in terms of their health care. And that's one of the missions of the VA. And speaking of that, a lot of times I'm brought on to your show, which is awesome, and other podcasts to talk about not only what is in the newspaper all the time, which is VA healthcare, but also some of the other things that maybe we don't take notice of, which is VA research, VA education, VA emergency preparedness. The VA actually has 4 missions here. Healthcare, obviously. We have research, education, and emergency preparedness as our other 3 tenets of main mission. And what does that mean? Well, our infrastructure houses some of the world-class research in healthcare that takes place. And I'm not sure if everybody really knows that or not, but we've made so many discoveries in terms of advancing healthcare, partnering with the Department of Energy in new ways of using artificial intelligence to get to the right type of immunotherapy in the latest cancer treatments, or installing, now we install linear accelerators in our hospital that do laser beam treatments on our veterans. These are actual machines now that are actively treating our veterans, and they use the electricity that's provided by the building, which in turn allows us to take credit for direct patient care in a way, because you can't do it unless the machine is operating correctly. But these are just a few of many research initiatives that the VA takes on. You mentioned earlier on in the show, PTSD. It's a big problem for veterans, right? Post-traumatic stress syndrome. And the VA is uniquely positioned to do the research that's required to understand PTSD better. In fact, one of the former facilities I worked at was a leader in determining where PTSD occurs in the brain by using MRI imaging and analyzing molecular, sorry, I'm bird walking a little bit, but analyzing enzymes that trigger the PTSD. So their research was essentially identifying when and where PTSD occurs. And there's also what we call traumatic brain injury, or TBI. Again, VA is on the cutting edge of these types of unique illnesses that we see in veterans who've been exposed in war through lots of blasts and etc. that comes with being in combat. Back to you, Stevie.
Oh, I understand that. So, hey, it's great that you guys, I've been around a lot of the NFL guys that all have that CTE, right? Or they
Right.
say, CRS can't remember shit, right? Because they've had so many concussions, or, been hit like a freight train's hitting them in those, 300-pound guys hitting one another type deals. So, I know they always have to have stuff sent to them written down in a meeting format, right? That it's on their calendar, because they can't recall, is it at 10 o'clock on next week, Wednesday, or is it 11 o'clock? When is it? So, it's similar to what you guys are doing and finding out in PTSD, and then relating it to the NFL and to the football players, and then all the different tests that they're doing in the different cities. I know some of them that are in Arizona are actually going to like Milwaukee or Kansas City for that. And I know that the VA's, tied right in there of what you guys are finding out on research of helping those guys, right? Because I know a guy who wrote, Daryl Clack, real quick, wrote a book, Why I Can Still Remember, right? Played fullback for the Cowboys, wrote a book that totally, the title is Why I Can Still Remember, because he's got, CRS, CTE, and losing his memory. So, it's a real thing. And hey, not to switch gears real fast, but I guess kind of like going from, a combustion engine to an EV. You guys are right there at the cutting edge of putting EV in at your facilities, right? Don't you have like a mission or a standard? Like in so many years, your
Yes,
vehicles at the hospital are going to be electric.
absolutely. In fact, if you want to pull up that other presentation, that would be a good time to do so now. And we have some stats on our current EV infrastructure. We did a study nationwide. Chris Albright from BHA was leading that study. Just waiting for you to pull up the slide so I can.
Yeah, I don't know if John's going to be able to pull that up or not, but we'll keep. Yeah.
Is it something I could do? Oh no, I need to upload it myself.
Yeah, he said he can't. He's not able to grab it and pull it up. So let's talk about it. And then this is just part one. Alan, I hate to tell you this, but now that you've been on the show, that means you get to come back. Okay, you've won the lottery to come on back. Okay, so
I feel very lucky.
A little bit about the EV stuff, and then
sure.
Like I said, we'll bring it on back and have you come back. Like in a week or so.
Okay, well, and I was thinking about one thing. It could be a little too controversial, so you might have to cut it out of your.
Hey, look! This is YouTube, baby. We can talk about anything. We can say whatever language we want. It's not like it's.
Okay.
It's not like FTC is going to come on and say, "Okay, boys, you can't say shit, hell, or what the f type deal." So don't worry about it. Okay.
All right. Well. Let me start with what is our legislative driver, and I might jump to something else in a second, but. Right now, until things change, if they change, Executive Order 14057, catalyzing clean energy industries and jobs through federal sustainability. In 2027, 100% of annual light-duty vehicle acquisitions are what we call ZEVs, right? By 2035, 100% of medium and heavy-duty vehicle acquisitions are going to be ZEVs. So what does that really mean for us in the VA is that we already started down the road of doing a national study to look at our EV infrastructure. As of July, 61 sites of the 170 have been completed, and we have an estimated cost for implementation of $282 million. We have estimated that we'll need 2,200 level 2 chargers and approximately 320 level 3 chargers. So that's significant already because we're going to have to work closely with our utility partners in order to come up with the right solution to getting the power that we need to not only power facilities to support our critical healthcare operations, but now looking at how do we support this EV mandate that we have, right? Because it's hard enough to just support critical healthcare operations in our facilities. Now we're talking about VAs, a huge federal institution. We have 330,000 employees. Many of our social work employees actually use vehicles to go out in the community. So
and drive back. You're right.
Right. So when people ask, well, why do we VA have to upgrade EVs? They're not, they have to understand the VA mission of our healthcare and not only what takes place inside our facilities, but also what's in the community as well. And VA is done a tremendous job of going out into the community. We have, like I said, over 1,300 what we call community-based outpatient care sites, or sites that are not necessarily you have to go to a VA hospital for, but we also have programs where we have VA employees going to work. They're driving government vehicles out in the community. So when you think about it like that, that's actually a needed tool for these social workers to deliver healthcare to the point of sight of where the veteran is, which is exactly what I think a lot of people talk about when they talk about getting healthcare to the veteran, literally driving to the veteran to check on the veteran.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So it does tie directly into our mission. And maybe I think we need to, as a a VHA energy working group. I need to say that more often because I don't say that enough. This is probably the second time where I've given that analogy of how to articulate the vehicle acquisitions and the vehicle infrastructure upgrade directly to delivery of healthcare. And it's very important that we're able to connect the two because a lot of times new energy managers may get asked these types of questions. How does that VA's mission? And then they're like, well, that's exactly how it is. It's because we have different types of vehicles. We also have light duty trucks that deliver food out into the community too. Certain VA programs now, we're doing what we call food to plate, where we actually may have grown the food on site, but then we'll deliver it somewhere to the community where veterans are in need of food. And that's a very important initiative. It ties right into homeless veterans and fighting homelessness and what we can do as the VA as well. Back to you, Stevie.
See, that's a lot that people don't understand. Didn't even know. I didn't know that existed. Okay, about growing the food and taking it out. Now I do know the part that you guys gotta, that you wrestle with, right? Because your good friend Ricky Hart down there in Dallas, right? The Dallas Medical Center. We had a meeting with him, going over different, energy training, from your normal building training, right? And got into talking about EVs, and the EV assessment, and it's almost, had a company, SciPac come on, Dan Bakke talk about it, and he goes, hey, it doesn't matter how much you study it, no matter where you think you're going to put the chargers, that's not going to be the right place. So just go ahead and get ready for it, because wherever you think they're going to be is not where the people are going to want to park their cars. And then secondly, Ricky was like, man, charging all these EV vehicles, like you say, and then be there and then come back and charge it back up that night at the facility, right? He was like, I'm going to have more of a building load to charge my cars than I need for the building itself. It's like I'm building another whole building. So he got into like, okay, can I stage, these cars get, charged first and the next ones and then the next ones and set that all up. So when you go into assessment, it's not only where you're going to set the chargers, but then how are you going to, facilitate charging them so they're ready for the next day? Because like you said, now you got medium weight trucks going out in the community. You got cars going out there. You got your electric forklifts that are running around. They're telling, where we're going to go at some time with AI and electric robots moving around in there. So you're going to have a lot of electricity come down the pipe besides the changing that they want you to change from natural gas to electricity. I mean, where are we going to get all this, Alan? Come on, you're an engineer. Where are we going? We're gonna harness the sun here in the next 10 years, 15 years.
I'll tell you what I said to a few people, because it's you, Stevie. I'm just taking a picture because I love it. This probably goes back 10 years or so ago. I was tapped for Energy Exchange on a leadership series, which was great because I was on stage with the director of energy for the Navy at the time, Keith Benson. And I also have a good friend, Hussam, who is the director of energy for the DoD. So he works at the Pentagon. So this isn't just now a VA issue. It's an everybody issue, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that I had said kind of jokingly, but in all seriousness was I want to be the first to do a few things, right? Because I truly believe in the mission and I want to make it happen. I asked who do I need to talk to get a used nuclear reactor? And, they actually made some calls on that, because of whoa, what are you talking about? I said, there's never been an energy conservation measure that I know of that we've installed a nuclear reactor because it's a 50-year battery. Let's take the word nuclear out of it because 10 years ago, I wasn't allowed to say small modular reactor outside of certain circles because that was considered too sensitive to talk about, right?
Yeah, it was taboo.
I'm talking as me as a person and not in my official capacity. So I just want to make that clear whenever I use the word small modular reactor, SMR. Okay, SMRs have come a long way. So 10 years ago when I said that, I said, if you guys let me do it, I want to do it. There's a lot of rules and regulations. Obviously, you're not allowed to install nuclear reactors in your backyard, and for good reason too. The technology has improved. I'd say probably triple what it was 10 years ago in terms of the safety and security aspects, which I'm not really going to get into that right now either. That come see Energy Exchange. There's other places where we will talk about that in greater detail, but I'll just keep it for YouTube for now. Is right. SMRs are a viable option in terms of where do we get this power from? Because you got to look at how much does it cost to transmit power too. And the Department of Energy did a study, I believe it was 6 or 7 years ago now, looking at the national infrastructure of transmission too. Because this we need to fold into the EV conversation, right? If you don't take into account how you're getting your power, you're not going to understand how to generate the power out to where it's needed when you charge the vehicles. Okay.
Exactly.
So in broad terminology, and this is very broad here, but I did apply to the Energy Exchange technical planning team. And, I've always followed all the rules when it comes to working with national labs. What I'll say is this, is that across America, transmission is not the same. We have areas where it's very much derelict and deficient, where, widespread, you need upgrade substations and transformers just to get the power to where it's needed. Okay. So take a hospital, whether it's a private hospital, whether it's a VA hospital, it's still being fed essentially by the utility. There are only 4 locations. I'm sorry. It's 6 locations that have what we call a combined heat energy plant in the VA, where we're sort of generating on-site power through the use of excess steam. Other than that, all other VAs are dependent upon the utility for our power. So it becomes a bigger problem in terms of how do we get more power to our facilities if our electrical load and our electrical profile keeps on rising, partly because of the EVs, yes, and partly because state-of-the-art equipment happens to use more power than older equipment. And the VAs were not designed today to meet some of these power requirements that the 3T MRIs, the 7T MRIs, the new high-tech, high-cost equipment needs in order to deliver what I was talking about before, direct patient care. A linear accelerator comes with a whole room of power conditioning equipment for a good reason, because it's in a 60-year-old building and it needs very clean power in order to deliver, at the end of the day, that pencil beam laser that's actually killing cancer cells in a patient, and with the accuracy that's never seen before. So the side effects are a lot less than what they traditionally were. So going back to the situation here with the power transmission and, like you said, power generation, 10 years ago, I raised my hand. I said, let me be the first to install a 50-year battery at one of our VA facilities, right? So, the conversation happened at high levels, and it came down with the VA isn't set up to do that type of work. We don't want to be a utility. We don't want to be a water treatment facility. So there's a lot that we have to rely on the utilities to provide us. But I think as we see these electric profiles and we study them more, the intensity of what we need. And one of the things that I think go hand in hand with this conversation, Stevie, too, is the data centers, VA data centers, because we have a huge EHRM project across all VAs right now. That's the Electronic Health Record EHRM Management System, EHRM, where it's not only looking at getting one medical record from DOD to VA to be compatible, right? So we could share the information.
Right.
Behind the scenes, there's a huge, and I'm talking hundreds of millions of dollars of infrastructure upgrades that we're taking on in order to upgrade all of our federal data centers to the right standards. And that doesn't just include the main server rooms at every VA medical center. That also includes all of the what we call IT closets, where we're distributing the networking through our medical centers as well. So,
Wow.
for example, one VA could be $30 million. Now, extrapolate that to 170 VAs, you have an idea of the magnitude we're talking about, because computers use a lot of power, right? And not only that, the computers need clean power. So that's a whole other entire conversation.
Yeah,
I didn't get too much into this, but
hey, Alan, that's not a problem at all, because we're probably going to have to end today's show, and we'll probably leave it right there, coming back with the data centers, and then the follow up on the EV, and we'll have you come on back like in a week or so to come on back, and we'll talk to data centers, because I know that's a big issue, incentive, and I know that there's a consortium of data centers. I can't remember the letters of the whole group, but I know they're looking to do a data center training workshop like around the 19th of March. So kind of keep that in your head about coming on up. I think it's going to be in Columbia, Maryland, so folks that come in, and of course the VA's got enough sites right in that center hub of Columbia, right? Baltimore, UNDC, Morgantown, all around. So,
well, if you don't mind me throwing out one last shout out, Lawrence Berkeley National Lab is actually a center of excellence, and they offer this data center training. They offer 2 levels of it actually, and you get a certification. I haven't done it myself, but I'll probably do it sometime next year. So look into that as well. Steve, great for having me on your show too, by the way.
Oh man, I'm glad you came on the show. Hey, I like that about Lawrence Berkeley, because we can get them, maybe offer that class during that time, and that way they'll save you, you'll be able to program in when you're going to take that class, and others like you that need to take it. We can just schedule it around that week of March 13th. Well, I guess it's the 13th, something like that.
Yeah, it'd be great. I can't speak for Lawrence Berkeley National Lab and what they're willing to do, but I can say that they have amazing expertise, and I've personally, been on that site more than once, and had some really great conversations about the possibilities of what could be, and I'm always trying to change what's possible in a positive way, so it benefits the VA, and I'm looking forward to the next time we get to talk, because once we start, it's like there's all these things that you want to talk about that you never have time to really mention.
Absolutely. And, I appreciate it, because every time you come on, I learn new stuff. Every time you and I just get together and, shoot a little pool or have a cigar, I always learn more, right? It's like, you never stop learning no matter how old you get. That's all I got to say. I'm not going to say how old I am, but I do know that's true. So, hey, Alan, thanks for taking the time to come on the show and everything. I love the background. You and I both have Stevie G's Corner. So, hey, we're rocking it still. And, hey, we'll schedule you to come on next, probably in another week or so, to come on back, and we'll follow up where we've left off here and started back up again. Because like you say, there's a whole realm. It's kind of like, what do they say? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time? Or how do you peel the onion? One slice type deal. So, hey, this is just the beginning of it, everybody. So, hey, Alan, again, thanks for coming on, and definitely look forward to having you come on. And, hey, also, I'm going to put you're now officially a member of the planning committee of the data center workshop in March in Columbia, Maryland, okay?
Officially, I appreciate that on the Sunday.
Yeah, you're officially a member. If you need a letter, we can send a letter, so your boss will let you drive up from DC to Columbia, okay?
Right on, Stevie. Well, mahalo. Thank you very much for having me on. I look forward to, continuing the conversations, because I think we definitely need to talk next time more about some of the technologies that are coming out that slowly are getting integrated into the VA. And, just for general purposes, I think everybody outside VA should know about. So thank you very much, Stevie, for getting the word out.
you got it. Hey, have a great rest of your day, and we'll get together. Okay.
All right. Sounds great. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Take care.